Thank you everyone for joining. I'm so grateful to see some of you again coming back, and maybe some of you for the first time. We do this series of talks and sessions, and periodically through the year we have special courses that we run, and this is one of them, and we thought we'd do a little taster for it to sort of get you an idea of what the session's going to be about, what Unlock's about, and just get you enthused and inspired to come on board this journey of unlocking the Bhagavad-gita. So Unlocked was originally done over a year ago with Keshu Maharaj, and it was a wonderful, wonderful course and a way of looking at it and presenting it. And I'm going to now share that course with you, hopefully in a dynamic way where we can also learn together. We can all connect, and we can all really go deep into this knowledge, and that's really life-changing. And yeah, so I'm really excited. So I'm really great, and also really grateful for everyone being here. Now, what we normally do is we normally start with a gratitude prayer. So those of you who are not familiar with this, it's there on the screen. And if you don't know it, that's okay. But I just request you maybe close your eyes and I'll say the gratitude. They say gratitude is a mother of all qualities. So we'll begin with that. So you can take a deep breath in and just sort of center yourself. Om Agyan Timidandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshurun Militan Mena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Agyan Timidandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshurun Militan Mena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Agyan Timidandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshurun Militan Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I I offer respect unto my spiritual teachers who have opened my eyes, which were blinded by the darkness of ignorance, with the torchlight of knowledge. So welcome. We begin this session of Unlocked Taster, and today we're going to be talking you through each element of the Bhagavad-gita, broken up, and what we're going to be covering in the course. And hopefully you get something from today as well. So here's a picture of me and Keshav Swami. This is the origins of Think Gita when we did a trip to India. And we really wanted to share this wisdom with everyone that's so impactful and life-changing. And we wanted everyone to have access to it. So Maharaj, he is the genius of creating this content and making it really, really relevant to everyone and everyone's life. And we also want to have a community, and this is what we do. We create people. You can see here with some pictures of events we do, and retreats we do, and circles, and we have small groups, and we have wisdom talks, and we do corporate things, and lots of different things. And it's all centered around the Bhagavad Gita, and centered around spirituality and building a community through wisdom. So our vision is to make to change the world through wisdom by providing paradigm shifting insights from the Gita, which hopefully you'll get from this course and from this session. And our mission is to become, the #1 place to study the Bhagavad Gita and make the Bhagavad Gita the most popular book in the world. So here's some of the things we do. Maybe some of you have been on our retreats, or you've come on some of our events, or maybe on the chat you can write, is this the first time you're connecting with us? Or maybe you've been on one of these things before, or whatever it is you join, whatever your interaction is with Think Gita. Maybe it'd be nice to hear from everyone how they connected or how they are connected so far. So yeah, amazing. Nice to see. Okay, first time, Kunal, thanks for joining. Yeah, keep writing on the chat, and yeah, share if you do have interactions as well. Okay, Ruchi's first time as well. Great. It's so welcome. It's so nice to see you. Okay, what are we trying to do? Yes, we're sharing this wisdom, but what's the objective? we really want to create change makers. We want to create a world where people look at the world differently, look at it through a different lens. We see in the world right now, there's so much turbulence, so much going on, so much distraction, but we want everyone, all of you, to become change makers, all of you to take on this wisdom and really kind of be inspired to make a change in this world. And we want to make you think again, not just think, as society makes you think, but no, we want you to question. One challenge I want to set everyone as we're going through this presentation, if you have a question, or maybe just think of a question, and maybe we can fill them at the end. But think of something that maybe there's a doubt you have about it, or something I'm saying, or something maybe you've had a doubt about before in spirituality, or about the Bhagavad-gita, or whatever it is. We actually open the floor for questions and answers. Vedic wisdom is based on questions and answers. So if you look at, I'll be sharing in a second, if you look at the Bhagavad-gita, you look at other texts like the Srimad Bhagavatam, you can see I've got a whole array of books behind me. You'll see that a lot of it's based on questions and answers. Even to recent times, Srila Prabhupada, he had a book by his disciples called Science of Self-Realization, and that's based on questions and answers. And there's also one called Chant and Be Happy, also based on questions and answers. So you'll see this is how wisdom is churned. This is how we make progress. This is how you learn. So as I'm going through, think of a question. I'm encouraging everyone to think of something to ask. Here's a picture of the sea. I don't know if any of you live near the sea. Maybe you can write in the chat if you do. But whenever I go on holiday, especially to the sea or to the beach, and I look out at the horizon and look out at the shores, I always realize actually how deep and vast the ocean is, and how small I am comparatively. And actually, when you look at the sea in that way, your problems become a lot smaller. Your doubts become a lot smaller. Your worries become a lot smaller. Maybe you can write yes in the chat if you've had that experience before of looking out in the sea and you've seen how vast the ocean is, but actually it's made you feel the comparison of life in that way. Now, based on that analogy and based on that experience, one thing I can share with you about the Bhagavad-gita and Vedic wisdom is it's like the ocean. So the knowledge is vast, the knowledge is so deep, the knowledge is so clear, the knowledge is so truthful. So when you look and study and dive deep into the context of the Bhagavad-gita, what happens is your problems also feel smaller. You feel the depth of that wisdom, and it puts things in perspective, and it helps you through life and navigate different things. So what is the Bhagavad Gita? Okay, so hopefully all of you have heard of this book before, but if you haven't, on one level, it's a theological book. So it's up there with the Quran, with the Torah, with, the Bible, all of these other books. It's also a spiritual book. So a lot of spirituality we see today centers and comes from the Bhagavad Gita. It's also a philosophical book. Once we were giving out this book of the Bhagavad Gita, and we had a philosophy student come up to me and was like, "Whoa, I love that book, the Bhagavad Gita. I've actually used it in my theses when I was studying, and I used it in my essays for my submission." It's a very philosophical book. It's also an inspirational book. Many famous people have taken inspiration from it, including Mahatma Gandhi, who said, "When doubts haunt me and stare me in the face, I just open a page to the Gita." Now, yes, it is a theological book. Yes, it's a spiritual book. Yes, it's a inspirational book. But even if you don't connect on a level with any of these things, above all, the Bhagavad Gita is a life companion. So this is a book that stays with you through every end of time, every challenges in life, every ups and downs in life. This book stays with you, and actually it stays with you and it helps you. You can refer it to it at any point. And that's how the best way to describe the Bhagavad Gita actually is. So yeah, I really recommend, if you don't have a copy, maybe we can share at the end as well how you can get one. Now, this is a little graph here. How many of you would say your life so far has been like the top person cycling, number one? Or would you say your life is like number two, the bottom one? Maybe write on the chat. Let's see what everybody has to say. Okay, Ash, number two. Dinesh, number two. Kunal, number two. Ruchi, number two. Devanchi, number two. Okay. Alexandra, number two. Jagannath, number two. Rajesh, also number two. Nita, number two as well. Two, but wish it was one. Yes, Sarah. Mahajan, yes, number two. Yeah. Sometimes we felt like when we start life or when we're young, we feel like life is just going to be an easy ride. But actually, reality is it's number two, whether it's COVID, whether it's losing a job. There's so many different things that happen. But is that actually a bad thing? Is it actually a bad thing that this is how life is? So I work in the NHS. I work as a medical practitioner. And can anyone tell me what this is in the chat? Maybe you want to write. Does anyone know what this graph is? Yes, Rajesh. It's an ECG. Yeah, ECG of the heart. Now, what happens when the ECG goes flat? What happens when the ECG goes flat? Yes, you're dead. Alina, yes, you're finished. This is life, actually. So is it really a bad thing that our life goes up and down? Is it actually a bad thing that we have ups and downs in our life? You can see here the different points. And what does it mean if your life is up and down? It means you're alive. It means you're present. It means you're here. Now, what are some of the things that make the up and downs in life? What are some of the things would you say that has happened in your life that have been turning points? You can describe these as turning points in your life. What are some of the turning points that people go through in life? Maybe you get in chat. Grief, yeah, from death of a loved one. Maybe something you've been through before, maybe something you're going through now, failures, childbirth, okay, trauma. Good. What other things do people go through? Success. What other life-turning events do we have? War, keep them coming. Heartbreaks, canal, marriage, disasters, downfall. Yeah, brilliant. Any more? Pandemic, yeah, depression. Janesh, thanks for sharing. Failure. So yeah, let's go through some of these turning points. There's 5 main turning points that scientists came up with, social studies come up with. There's 5 main things. You could categorize everything you guys put in the chat under these 5 points. Number 1 is fortune, ups and downs of life. Sometimes you're winning, sometimes you're losing, sometimes your fortunes are up, sometimes they're down, right? So fortunes of life. Decisions, making decisions. Should I get married or should I not get married? Should I move house or not move house? Should I move city or not move city? Life-changing decisions that present to us constantly. They say you make 33,000 decisions every day. Relationships, a lot of you put in the chat, marriages, divorce. Yeah, types of relationships we have, the people around us. Common one is death. Death of a loved one, death around us, death of a family member, fear of death, thinking about death, and finally doubts. So you can see here, these are generally the 5 things that we see in the world today and people go through. You can categorize. Now, the interesting thing is the Bhagavad Gita has 5 topics which all relate to these 5 things and themes. And you'll see in the presentation as you go along, you'll see these things come up. You'll see these foundations come up, and the Bhagavad Gita addresses it in that way. So, sorry, yeah. And where do we learn about how to navigate these things, right? Where do we learn in life? In school, do we learn about death? In school, do we learn about relationships? Do we learn about decisions? Do we learn about fortunes? Is maths going to help you with, a death of a loved one? Is, the idea of history going to help you with your fortunes? Is learning French going to help you with, the ups and downs of life? When Srila Prabhupada, who wrote the Bhagavad Gita as it is, he went to a big university in Michigan, and when he was toured around the university and showed every department, he said, "Where's the department about learning how to navigate life? Where is the department to learn how to identify yourself? Where is the department to identify how to then navigate all the problems that come in life?" So that brings us here to this book of the Bhagavad Gita, which gives us that knowledge, which gives us that connection. Now I'm going to try and whiz through a summary of the Bhagavad Gita for you and what we're going to be covering in the 8 weeks of Unlocked. Now, for those of you who know the Bhagavad Gita, essentially it's two conversations happening in the Bhagavad Gita. I mentioned earlier that all scriptures, all Vedic knowledge is based on questions and answers. And there's two questions and answer sessions happening in this book. There's an outer dialogue happening, and there's an inner dialogue happening. The outer dialogue is happening between Sanjaya and Dhritarashtra, who's a blind king. And this blind king, he can't see, so then he has somebody with him who has divine vision, almost like a television vision. You can see there it exists now. It's called remote viewing. So somebody can see something happening somewhere else. So he has this remote viewing ability, and he's asking his charioteer, his servant, his consort, asking him confidants, right? What is happening in the battlefield? What are my sons and the sons of Pandu doing in the battlefield? Like there's this war about to happen. It's an epic war. It's the greatest war. So this king is not taking part because he's blind, and he's asking what's going to happen, what's happening right now in this war. Simultaneously, we see another conversation happening, and this is actually between Krishna and Arjuna. Now, this conversation is the inner dialogue. This is the inner dialogue happening in the Bhagavad Gita, and it's talking about wisdom. It's talking about purpose. It's talking about life. It's talking about how to navigate challenges, what's happening in Arjuna's life. So you see that there's an inner dialogue and an outer dialogue happening. When we see the outer dialogue, it's generally about people and events. So you can see here what's happening, who's winning, what's going to happen in the war. Whereas the inner dialogue, you can see it's discussing wisdom. So what is my purpose? How should I act? What should I focus on life? Who am I? What's my identity? So you see the difference here. You see the difference of dialogue, and we're going to be focusing on the Bhagavad Gita, focus on that conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, because that's where all the wisdom is taking place. And what happens is when you focus on wisdom, things transform. The way you see things transform, because then you actually see that same people and events with a completely different mindset and completely different view. How many of us look at the news today, right? And we open the news and it's generally about, what's a celebrity wearing? What do they do? Where do they eat? What yacht are they on? How many of us, maybe put in the chat, if you've been today, just today, you've been discussing people and events, or you've been reading about people and events, or you've opened a social media and you've seen people at events. You know, this is reality. This is what we see. What the Bhagavad Gita encourages us to do is to change that narrative and actually look at wisdom, discuss wisdom, think about wisdom, and then you see that in a different lens. They say small minds discuss people, average minds discuss events, and great minds discuss wisdom. So this is what we're all here to do, is to discuss wisdom and make that shift, make that transformation. Very quickly, I'm just going to talk to you about this book, the Bhagavad Gita. It's here with me today. If you don't have a copy, make sure you get one. And what's amazing about this book is the way it's laid out is unique. There's no other book like this. So it's a Sanskrit, which is the oldest language, written language in the world. And it's such a deep language. NASA use Sanskrit for their coding, for their programming, because it's such an unambiguous language. So it's so detailed, like even the word love, or many different words like love or etc., have 15 different words for that same word love. For example, like we have one word in English, but Sanskrit will have 15 different words based on describing the complexity of that love, the type of love, the detail of that love. So you see, Sanskrit is such a special language, and it's even studied in many aristocratic schools around the world. And yeah, it's such a profound language. So we can see here the Sanskrit, and maybe most of you can't read that Sanskrit. Some of you might be lucky enough to. But then it's been translated into an English that we can actually read with the alphabet, which is called Ucharan. Then we're given a word-for-word translation. So you can see every word is translated into English, which with a translation of what it actually means. Then it's put into a sentence that we actually understand. And then Srila Prabhupada has given us a purport to explain what that verse means, explain what actually the Bhagavad Gita is saying, what that verse is saying, and how we can interpret it. So let's get fastened your seatbelts. We've got 30 minutes. We're going to go through every topic of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, I was going to ask, I actually pressed it, but when was the Bhagavad Gita spoken? How old is the Bhagavad Gita? Can anyone guess? Maybe you want to write on the chat. Maybe somebody already saw it. How long ago was the Bhagavad Gita spoken? 5,000 years ago. Yeah. Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, good. How many verses are there in the Bhagavad Gita? 700. Okay, good. How many chapters are there in the Bhagavad Gita? 18. Okay, good, good. Quick off the mark. Okay, let's see who gets it first. Okay. How many topics are there in the Bhagavad Gita? How many topics? 5. Dinesh, quick off the mark. Okay, good. How many yogas are there in the Bhagavad Gita? 3. Vinti. Okay, Vinti's got it. 3. Okay. And the last one is, let me check. I actually forgot. Okay, so 3 yoga paths. And what's the goal? How many goals are there of the Bhagavad Gita? 1. Okay, iPhone got it. Okay, there's one goal. Yeah, one goal and one goal only. And that is to help us think, help us redefine life. Brilliant. Thank you so much. You guys are brilliant. So we're going to rethink life. Now, there's 2 ways that helps us rethink life. There's two instigations, 2 triggers that help us rethink life. First is through inspiration. We can get inspired by a certain knowledge or certain wisdom, and that helps us rethink life. It helps us rethink what we believe. It helps us go deep and understand on a deeper level. So initially, you could say like one way of us making change in the world or rethink our life is through inspiration. But another way, if that doesn't work, and can happen to many of us, is through frustration. So when you read the Bhagavad Gita, it's an opportunity for you to change your life through inspiration, because we're getting inspirational insights. So you have the opportunity to upgrade your life, elevate, empower yourself, be yourself. And if we don't take advantage of that wisdom, we don't take the opportunity now, what's going to happen is you will end up having to come back to that wisdom only through frustration. So I don't know, maybe I don't have to ask this question, but you have a choice. Would you rather be inspired or come to this knowledge through inspiration or frustration? Which one would you prefer? Like they say, if you want to have a new idea, you should read an old book. So everyone in here is inspired, hopefully, by reading this book. And yeah, we can connect with this wisdom. And one thing I can guarantee you about the Bhagavad-gita is whatever everyone is thinking in whatever sphere of life, whatever culture, whatever everybody is seeking, whatever everyone is wanting to know about, every problem, every issue, everything that's happening is contained in the Bhagavad-gita. So you'll find this wisdom contained in the Bhagavad-gita, regardless of whatever situation, whatever problem you're in. And this is how we've set up this unlocked course. There's 8 sections here, and we've divided the 18 chapters into 8 sections. So as I've circled, you can see here, as I've circled each thing, you'll be able to notice each thing here is, each chapter is broken down into 8 segments, and that's our 8 weeks that we're going to be covering. And I can say to you that everything that is contained in these 18 chapters will give you a perfect summary of the Bhagavad-gita and help you redefine and rethink life and how you can learn 8 key lessons that the book is teaching us. So yeah, sometimes people ask this question, like, is the Bhagavad-gita still relevant? How is it still applicable to life? Can we actually use this book still? It's such an old book, 5,000 years ago. So what we've done is we've looked at all of the top thing that's on everybody's mind, the 8 top things that are on everyone's minds right now. And we've consolidated it here in the Bhagavad-gita. So whatever main questions are out there, whatever people are searching for in the search engines, whatever people are aspiring to know and know about, we've put it in all of these 8 chapters. Now, you can see some of the best-selling books around spirituality. Maybe some of you read them. Like, what are the top-selling books, maybe that you've either read or you've heard about? Maybe you want to write on the chat. What's some of the top things that people read or are on people's minds? What books have you read? Spiritual books that are out there that everybody's searching for. Karma, okay. Is a book on karma. Power of Now, yeah, by Eckhart Tolle. Yeah. Any more? The Secret, yeah, Rhonda Byrne's. How to The Law of Attraction, the Book of Karma. Okay, good. Dharmapada, brilliant, Nita. Thank you. Any more? Keep sharing. Yeah, I like that one. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yeah, I read that book. In Engineering, Sadhguru, Spare. Yeah, Atomic Habits here. Brilliant. I think I've got most of the ones that you shared. I think no one shared this one, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I personally really like that one as well. So you can see here, Secret, Robin Sharma's book, Atomic Habits, 7 Habits, Stephen Covey. He explained how, there's a time matrix, how you can redefine life, how you can set your goal, the power of now, being present. Now, one thing I can guarantee you is everything that's contained in all of these books you will find in the Bhagavad-gita. The origins of every concept that is spoken in this book is explained in the Bhagavad-gita. Now, many of these books even admit and reference that their inspiration comes from the Bhagavad-gita. So why not go to the original source? Why not try and learn directly what the essence is trying to tell you, and get deep knowledge straight from this book? So I'm very excited to share this with you. I'm very excited to take you on this journey. So let's look at a whistle stop tour of the 8 sections of the Bhagavad Gita. And I'm going to try and keep it really concise so we get some time for some questions as well at the end. So yeah, as I'm going through, please think of any questions, any challenges, anything that you want to ask about. Let's keep a nice discussion as well going, because I want you guys to also participate, and we can sort of keep it engaging. So what's the first lesson that we learned from the Bhagavad Gita? What's the first concept? We hear a quote from the famous actor Jim Carrey. I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that's not the answer. So the first thing we actually learn is how actually redefining success. And what does Arjuna say? I can find no means to drive away this grief, which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to dispel it, even if I win a prosperous kingdom, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven. So for the next one, I'll get you guys to read out this, whatever the verse is from the Bhagavad Gita connected. So you can unmute and also read it out. So we can see here, Arjuna's come to a moment just before he's entering the battle of his life. He's come to this moment where he realizes that what I thought was success isn't success. What I thought was going to make me happy basically is not going to make me happy. And it's interesting because life is structured in such a way that every time we achieve something which we deem to be success, very quickly we realize that that success never brought us happiness. That success isn't something that's going to fulfill us, right? We make so many goals, we have so many aspirations, we make a journey in life, and then we realize actually, like, even if we meet them goals, there's still a vacuum within the heart. And we've already talked about, when I was saying, everybody goes through different turbulations, different turning points. And we don't realize actually how we can redefine what success is. And we have to change our perspective. What is real success? I remember when I was studying, I did so many exams to qualify for my profession. And I was thinking, wow, as soon as I qualify, I'll be so happy. I know I'll have my degree, I'll be able to earn money, I'll be able to get a house, I'll get a nice car. And surprisingly, or unsurprisingly, when I achieved everything, when I achieved sitting in the 100 exams, I realized that didn't make me happy. That there was more to life. So what do we learn? What lesson do we learn through this? When we're chasing after material things, so maybe think about that material thing you're chasing in your life. Think about that thing that's in your mind. When we chase that material thing, first of all, we get futility. So even though we're hankering for it, even though we're chasing after it, when we don't get it, we feel frustrated inside, we get upset. And when, let's say, for example, you do get that material thing, what happens is insubstantial. It doesn't fulfill you. It doesn't give you that buzz that you were looking for. It doesn't actually make you happy. It's a bit of an anticlimax. Even if you get it and you feel good, the reality is it's temporary. It doesn't last as much as you feel it's going to last. It doesn't stay with you. And even if it stays with you for a little bit longer, what happens is there's often duality. So often a negative thing comes with that positive. There was an example of as there's a story in the Srimad Bhagavatam of Chitraketu, who always wanted a son. He had everything. He had an unrivaled kingdom, many wives, unrivaled wealth, unrivaled fame, but he didn't have a son. And when he got a son, he was hankering for this son so long. And when he actually got the son, after a few days, he was jubilant. He was really happy. After a few days, some of the other wives, they felt jealous that, oh, we didn't give the king a son. So they poisoned the son, and the son died. And then that same son became a deeper sense of misery for that king. So we can see that material things uh, aren't going to make us happy, right? So naturally, when we have this, we have to look towards spirituality. And this is what Arjuna did. He actually went through all of these things and he realized actually uh, spirituality, that what he needs to focus on. And when we redefine that success, the next thing we have to do is how do you connect to spirituality? What's the next stage? Okay, so material happiness won't cut it, and Arjuna has realized that. But what is spiritual happiness? Now, before we understand spiritual happiness, we have to understand our relationship. And what's the most important relationship that we have? Maybe you can write on the chat. What's the most important relationship that we have? Who is it with? What do you think is the most important relationship that we have to navigate or understand? Yeah, even before that, Mona, what's even more of an important relationship that we have to identify? The self, iPhone. Okay, the soul. Brilliant, brilliant. The self. Yeah, you guys got it. Until we understand what's a relationship with ourself, we can't figure out anything else. This is the first lesson we learn. To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to change you is the greatest accomplishment. Okay, so we have to know who we are, right? There's so much inauthenticity in this world. There's so many people right now who are just pretending to put an identity. We have so many different masks, so much different illusion. They say the only time you're really your authentic self is when you're 5 or when you're 75. But between that, we're just putting on constantly different masks and being inauthentic. What does Krishna say? Maybe somebody can unmute and read this out. I don't know if it's possible or not. Just one volunteer want to unmute? If it's not possible, then I'll read it out. Okay, maybe it's not. Okay, maybe for the next one, we can have it ready. So those who are seers of the truth have concluded that the non-existence, the material body, there is no endurance, and of the eternal, the soul, there is no change. So yes, we're hearing that there is no happiness in this life until we deeply connect with our authentic self. And what does that look like? So when we take on this body, in Sanskrit, there is a word called upadhi, which means designations. So when the soul takes on the material body, it has designations, and we also have anarthas, which means impurities. So what happens is Krishna says to Arjuna that you've basically accepted one lie, and from this one lie, these two things emerge, upadhis and anarthas. And what is that one lie? Is that you're this body and you're this mind. So Krishna tells Arjuna that you're actually a spiritual being, a consciousness, you're eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss. But by having this lie of thinking that you're this body and your mind, you have certain parties, which means designations, like I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm black, I'm white, I'm superior. And then you have anarthas, which means like I'm, you know, envy, you have greed, you have lust. But actually, beyond this, your soul. So I was at a wedding at the weekend, my friend's wedding, one of my best friend's wedding, and I was sitting. It was a reception, and I was sitting on a dinner table, And my friend's wife was sitting next to me, and I was thinking, oh, all of my friends I haven't seen for years. Okay, I'm sitting next to my friend's wife, my friend's sitting on the other side. So I'm like, okay, it's fine, we'll move around anyway. I mean, she's lovely. She's a really, really lovely person. And I was thinking, why am I sitting next to her? Anyways, so we started talking, and she mentioned to me that she just recently watched a documentary about reincarnation. I think it's on Netflix. I don't know what it's called, but she was like, I'm so blown away. Like there's these kids that they like go through their past lives, and they tell them like what they were in their past life, and then they point it out, and it's really, really direct, and it's really amazing. And she was just explaining, actually, what I didn't realize we're the soul. I didn't realize, well, like maybe I did, but I didn't actually think about it, or it didn't affect me. But now I realize, and just that triggered her inquisitiveness. We spent like, I don't know, like 45 minutes talking about the soul, reincarnation, relationships with God. It's almost like she got a one-to-one Bhagavad-gita unlocked session. But it's amazing, when we identify that, it triggers so many different questions in our mind, and it helps us start our spiritual journey. And what happens is when each time we go through these challenges, these things in our life, or we're going through different designations, we get an ego death. And through that ego death, we start to realize, actually, I'm not this body. Okay, I'm going to whiz through now. Okay, so we've realized, okay, you're not this body. We have to redefine success. But then how do you reposition lifestyle? How do you live in this world? Like, how do you make it practical? It's all good for me to say, yeah, you're not this body. Yeah, look at success differently. But how do you make it real? So Gandhi, he says, a burning passion compelled with absolute detachment is the key to success. So yes, you have your duties. Yes, you have your spiritual duties. You make effort, but how do you be spiritual? Interestingly, recently I've been looking at and in different meetings around people not engaging in work. Many people don't want to go to work, or they're getting stress and anxiety from working too much. It's interesting that ages of 19 to 35 don't want to work. They have a lot of apathy of finding jobs or working in the world, or what that's actually going to give them. And the ages of 35 to 44, they're suffering from stress and working too much and maybe getting too attached. So you've got two spectrums: people who are too detached from work and don't want to work, and people who are too attached from work. And what the Bhagavad Gita is saying is actually you need to be in the middle. You need to be so dedicated and have that burning passion to give it your best. But equally, you need to be detached. And this is what we call karma yoga. Karma yoga means not being attached to the outcome and acting in such a way that you're giving your highest contribution, you're giving your best, but equally staying balanced. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty. By working without attachment, one attains the supreme. So it's explained in this way. Basically, like you can compare this to your life, or let's say compare it to Arjuna's life. Yes, you're a husband. Yes, you're a warrior. Arjuna was also a king, he was a father. But then so he understands this, but also now he understands he's spiritual, he's a soul. So how does these two things link? Where do we find the link between these two? Well, Krishna actually says what we have to do is learn to be a spiritual husband. He has to learn to be a spiritual warrior. He has to learn to be a spiritual king or Raja Rishi. He has to learn to be a spiritual father. So therefore, you make as equal, if not more effort in your material life, but equally you're detached from it because you're the soul. And so often we compartmentalize, oh, our life is like this. Monday to Friday, I do my work life. Weekends, I'll do my spiritual life. Weekend, it's a spiritual me. But at work, it's a different me. But actually, the Bhagavad Gita is saying, no, integrate the two. So have the right intention, give it the right attention, form the right action, but also be detached from either of these things. And with that, you can integrate your life in a better way. Now we have the problems of the mind. Okay, so yes, you can live in the world, you can have this philosophy, you can be detached, but the thing of the mind is very difficult. is explained in the Bhagavad-gita. The mind creates reality, but also translates reality, and there's constantly this thing happening. So you can see we're constantly battling through this. And there's a famous verse from the Bhagavad Gita. For him who has conquered the mind is the best friend, but one who has failed to do so is his and will remain his worst enemy. Maybe put a yes on the chat if you've experienced that before. Sometimes the mind can be your best friend, and sometimes you feel like it's actually your worst enemy. You just can't comprehend what's going on. Your mind's telling you random things to do, random things to act. So, how do we navigate the mind? It's described the mind can be like, and I'll give an analogy which is relevant to people. The mind can be like a web browser. It has a home page. We have a certain configuration. When you wake up in the morning, or let's say equivalent to opening your laptop, there's a certain way your mind is set. There's certain thought patterns you have, certain things you think. That mind is like a home page, but the home page you can reset. The mind also has favorites. So you have certain things that you like to do, certain things that you gravitate towards. And with favorites, you could have good things, but you can also have bad things in your favorites. There's a history. So as you open up your page, there's a history of different things that you've experienced. There's autocomplete in your web browser. So things that happen in your life, and then you automatically jump to a conclusion. You automatically think, actually, this is going to happen. This is a fear. This always happens to me. Oh, I think this is definitely going. This is how they're thinking. But yes, you can change your homepage. Yes, you can reset your favorites. Yes, you can move and have more positive history. Yes, you can change your autocompletes. And how do you do that? The Bhagavad Gita explains through practice, through abhyas. The more spiritual references you have, more spiritual associations, the more you meditate, the more you fill your cup with these spiritual processes, you can overcome it. But watch out, because there's always going to be pop-ups. There's always going to be a time where something happens, and out of the blue, you get a random thought in your mind, a random pop-up that comes up. Now, the Bhagavad Gita explains that even if you get a pop-up, you don't have to act. You don't have to act on every single thought that comes into your mind. You don't have to make that thought something, that takes over your life. So it explains that you have to watch your mind, right? Learn to watch your mind, detach yourself from the mind and learn to observe, your thoughts. And through that, you can, don't identify with the mind, but identify the mind. Okay, it's all good, okay? I can be detached, have pop-ups, but in the heart of heart, what are we all looking for? It's not a connection of the mind, it's actually a connection of the heart, okay? So the chance to love and to be loved exists no matter where you are, okay? So we see this happening in our lives, that we don't want to just control the mind, but we want it to be enchanted. We want to be absorbed. We want to be attracted. Life is about, the heart. And you see what happens with the Bhagavad Gita is we have to learn not just about the actions, but what are the intentions behind the actions. Now, the Bhagavad Gita is set up in such a way that the first 6 chapters are based on how to live. The next are based on how to love, and the next are based on how to let go. So the middle part is like the most important. Imagine like a sandwich. You have a cheese sandwich, right? So you call it a cheese sandwich. So the love part is actually the most important. And Krishna describes, one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, I will accept. Recently, I went to a work event, and it was we decided that everybody would bring a dish from their cultures. And I was sitting with a lady the event before, and we were just discussing, I was saying I'm vegan and I can't really have other things, so I can't eat much. And then she was telling me about all her, I think she was Arabic. I can't remember which country where she was from. And she was telling me all of the sweets she has. And one of the sweets she was saying was baklava. I said, oh, I haven't really had baklava in ages and all that stuff. And then anyway, so cut to the time I saw her at the event. And as soon as I walked in, Like she got up and she came up to me and she goes, I've made vegan baklava. Like I've tried it for the first time and I made it all vegan and I really want you to try it. And I was amazed. I was like, wow. And even more than the actual like baklava, I was actually just looking to taste, the love she had put into it. I was looking to taste that enthusiasm that she had, and she made it with so much love, you could tell, and consciousness. So yeah, and I could taste that when I actually had it. And maybe some of you had that experience before. It's so if somebody makes something with so much love or gives you something with so much love, you feel it so much more. And essentially, this is what the Bhagavad-gita is talking about. What is the right intention of love? So I'm going to whiz through this. We're going to skip this probably now. I just want to get through the chapters. Yes, it's the connection of love, but how do you nourish that connection of love? And it's described that when you connect with Supreme, when you connect with the higher source, it's like watering the root of a tree. When you water the roots, all of the tree flourishes. So when you water that connection with the Supreme, all of your other relationships flourish. Everything else in your life will flourish. God is like oxygen. You can't see him, but also you can't live without him. Know that all opulent and beautiful, know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations spring from a spark of my splendor. So you can see how important it is to have that connection with the divine. Because when you have that goal, when you have that motivation of connecting with the divine, actually, you begin to blossom all of your other relationships. And the Bhagavad-gita explains that the divine is alive. So he's alive, he's there, he's present, he's attentive. So he's attentively looking at your life. He's affectionate, and most important of all, he's active. He's active in your life. There's a famous story where one of the monks, one of our senior monks, was asked, "Oh, you keep going on about God and this and God and that. Have you ever seen God face to face in your life?" And the senior monk said, "I may not have seen God face to face in my life, but I've seen the hand of God many, many times in my life." And maybe some of you have experienced that before, the hand of God. Maybe you put a yes in the chat. If you look back at your life, something happened somewhere that you ended up in a much better position, or in a position where you knew you had to be, right? So you know that presence of the divine. Maybe you can write yes in the chat if you've experienced that. Okay, so we've learned to love. Now we're going to look at energies. Krishna talks about how we can reconfigure energies. Successful people are simply those with successful habits. So our thoughts lead to actions, and repeated actions lead to habits. And habits builds our character, and our character makes our destiny. But at the center of all of this is our habits. And what's explained is that we have three modes of nature all around us, both inside us and outside us. Osana Bharata, the modes of goodness conditions. Osana Bharata, the mode of goodness conditions are to happiness, passion conditions one to fruitive action, and ignorance, covering one's knowledge, binds one to madness. So these three modes are constantly within us and without us. And the interesting thing is, whatever we have within us is projected outside of us, and whatever's outside of us comes into us. So you can have various different things in the different modes. Everything from the food you eat, maybe you want to write in the chat, like what's a food you can eat in the mode of goodness. There's parenting in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Studying for your exams in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Maybe, if you're studying last minute, you're more in the mode of passion. If you're studying hardly anything, then maybe in the ignorance. But if you're studying well in advance, maybe you're in the mode of goodness. The state of your bedroom can be in the mode of passion, ignorance, and goodness. So everything we do is around us within these three modes. And what happens is when we are in the mode of goodness, we have better relationships, we have better health, and we have better character, and also we have better achievement. And what happens is when we connect with that energy, naturally we're positioned in a different, in a certain way. So potentially a negative disposition. But when we reconfigure that disposition, just like you see the water is going downwards when we have a negative disposition. But when we change that, we can change it to a positive. We can change the direction. So by instilling these good habits, we can naturally make ourselves in that positive direction. And lastly, but not least, we have re-entering life. I slept and I dreamt that life was joy. I woke up and saw that life was service. I acted, behold, and service was joy. This is Rabindranath Tagore. He's a poet and a literaturist. Oh, my dear Krishna, oh, infallible one, my illusion is now gone. I have now regained my memory by your mercy. I am now firm and free from doubt, and I am prepared to act according to your instructions. So you can see here, Arjuna has now awakened to the idea of becoming useful in his service, using his dharma, using everything that Krishna has spoken, and ultimately using it for service in being a warrior. And this is the essence of the Bhagavad-gita. We learn the last message is life is about service, how we give back to society, give back to people, and utilizing the skills that we have in giving back to others, and ultimately connecting with the divine. So here are the 8 things that we'll be covering in the Unlocked course. And you can see here, each of these things I've just very briefly touched on, but there's so much wisdom and gold in each of these things that we'll be going through. So redefining success, what does that mean? Our identity, positioning our lifestyle, remolding the mind, connecting with love, both around us and with the Supreme, reconfiguring that energy to help us re-enter life. And like I mentioned, all of these books, every single one of these books has been inspired by the Bhagavad-gita. To self-development, without spiritual development, it goes hand in hand. Without one, you can't get the other, otherwise it's just stagnant. And this is how we learn, right? Spiritual knowledge isn't something we just learn linearly. Like, it's not just something we learn, like, you learn this, and then you learn this, and then you learn this. Actually, it's like a spiral. You learn the same things over and over and over, repeatedly. You read it broadly, so you read different things in spiritual literature. Discursively, so you read it together. So we're going to be having bonus sessions where we discuss that wisdom, and I'll open it up in a second for you guys to also ask questions and challenge and anything that's come to your mind, but also practically. So yes, I'm saying all of these things, but how can I now apply it in my life? How can I use the tools in my life directly to actually make a difference? And through that, you get to the single point of what actual spirituality is. That it's, as you're getting deeper and deeper and deeper, you realize it's so simple that you might just miss it. So anyway, I'll skip through this and I'll hand over back to you, Drishti. But before I do that, I mentioned the example at the beginning of the session about the sea, the ocean, and how the depth of spiritual knowledge really gives you an idea of how small your problems become. Now, just like the depth of that spiritual knowledge, you see this girl here, she's dipping her toes into the water. Now, you also have a choice. You can either be like this lady and just dip your toes in that wisdom, or you can go to the surface and maybe swim, or maybe you can go a little bit deeper into the ocean, or you can go real deep into the ocean and go right underneath and explore the ocean. Now, what's found right underneath and deep in the ocean? Can anyone guess? Can anyone tell me? What do you find like right deep? What is it? What's something amazing that you can find at the depth of the ocean? There you go, jewels. Yeah. If we want to get that pearl, that wisdom, really, then we have to dive deep into that depth of the ocean, and then we can extract, that wisdom, that pearl. So there we go. Thank you very much. I'll hand over back to Drishti, and if we have any questions, and we can take that also and have a bit of a discussion.
Thank you so much, Raj, for such an inspiring talk. You were mentioning at the start how you can actually enter into this knowledge either through inspiration or through frustration. So how many of you guys feel inspired through hearing Raj speak for these last 35 minutes? Yeah? That's great to see. Me too. This is what I mean. Every time I listen to Raj, he speaks with so much clarity that I'm just overwhelmed with the level of inspiration I feel. But this is only 35 minutes of time you've been able to spend with Raj, with the Gita, and only a little drop of gold has actually been released from all that the Gita has to offer, only a little pearl from that bottom of the ocean. And over the next few sessions, I'll just share. Over the next few sessions, if you choose to join us, so many more jewels will be given to you. And the Gita really does have something to offer for every single person. And I really hope you've been able to understand that through the little overview that Raj has given. So please do join us for the next sessions that are commencing. They're starting from the 24th of October, 8 p.m. to 9:15. You can scan the QR to join, and perhaps give a donation as well. I think it said £25 minimum donation, but I'm not too sure. Yes, £25 minimum donation. I really hope to see you guys all there. But before we finish off, we'll go into a quick Q&A. As Raj was saying, it's really important to ask questions. All our scriptures are based off questions. The Gita, the Bhagavatam, all of them are based off questions. So if you have any questions, please put your hand up, or you can type in the chat if you feel shy, then I can read it out for you. But we really encourage you to engage and share your thoughts yourselves. Thank you. Anyone have any questions?
I can see one question's come up from Kunal, in the question and answer box. How can we find our purpose of life and Dharma? Yeah, thanks, Kunal, for asking that question. It's a really deep question, and it's actually something we will cover in the course, Finding Your Purpose in Life. And it's a journey. It's actually a journey, finding your Dharma. And there's different ways you can do that. And I'll just give you like a quick fire answer because of time, but we'll go deep into this. One is understanding yourself. So writing down like what are your skills, what are your attributes, what things do you take pleasure in, what things do you enjoy, what things gives you excitement, what things do you wake up in the morning and think, wow, like I want to do this. That's number one. Number two is asking people around you. So ask people around you, what do you think is my purpose? What do you think am I really good at? What do you think is my unique contribution? And number three is testing. So try it, like try different things. Like maybe even if you're stuck in a job that you don't like, outside of your job, try different areas. Like maybe you like to teach, maybe try teaching outside of work. Maybe you like sports, maybe you like drawing, maybe you like art. So whatever it is, try it outside. And the last thing I would recommend is using whatever purpose you have, your Dharma, in service. So if you feel like I can use it in service, then you're moving in the right direction. Because otherwise, what is the purpose? What is the point of finding your purpose in life if you don't use it for service? So it's a quick fire question.
Thank you so much for the answer. You broke it down so nicely. Nita has a question on finding your spirituality. Is it the same as intuition or gut reaction? That's so interesting, Raj.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you for that question, Nita. Yeah, what happens is naturally when you become more spiritual, you become more in tune with your gut reaction. And it's explained what that gut reaction is. So there's a concept of the super soul within the heart. So they say like everybody has a super soul, and that's essentially what your gut reaction is. It's your heart, your super soul in your heart telling you, this doesn't feel right. This is a really not good decision to make. Actually, I'm really getting a good feeling about this. So that's your super soul directing you. And when you become more spiritual, what happens is you become more in tune with your super soul, and that aligns a lot more. Not only that, but that super soul also becomes more alive when you discuss wisdom together. When you come in a group together like this, or when you discuss the Bhagavad-gita, that super soul starts speaking to you. And sometimes it might speak to you from within, sometimes it might speak to you from without. Sometimes somebody might say something and it'd be like, that's exactly what I needed to hear, you know? So yeah, that's uh and we will go more into that as well, into the depths of the super soul. But thank you for asking that. And Drishti, if you have any comments also, like please also share, if anything I've said, you want to add anything.
My comments can't compare to the knowledge you have to give.
No, please. Drishti is very knowledgeable. She's just being humble. Like great knowledge herself.
Um, Actually, I think one of the first points that ever stuck to me in spirituality was the fact that the guilt we often feel is divinity trying to speak to us. And then as we build our spirituality, then we can hear divinity even more. And in that way, yeah, same as intuition.
Amazing.
Savita has a question on meditation. I think it is the right atmosphere to ask. So please do, if you want to unmute and you can ask in that way. Savita.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. I got it now. I got the link for the meditation part because, having this Bhagavad Gita, going through these sessions, I guess, I have to get into meditation. But I live in US, so my timings are completely off. So I was just checking my EST hours and it's like 1 in the morning, like 1 a.m. in the morning. So do you have any other timing or can we get the recorded session where I can have it in the morning, like my early morning?
So I think we will be doing a meditation session for the bonus session every Tuesday, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So you can join that. And then from that
Different
practice,
time.
record it as well. And it will be same time as this, so 8 p.m. BST. So
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Then I would be able to join you. Thank you so
yeah,
much.
brilliant.
That's a
Thank
bonus, definitely a bonus for me. And
you.
it's a great session. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Hare
Yeah.
Krishna.
Sure. And please tell your friends about it as well. We've got 2 weeks,
I
I think,
will.
we start. So yeah, you and everybody else, please share with others and help us build a community.
Definitely. Definitely. I will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a question from Ruchi as well, which is one I also would really appreciate an answer to, is one I'm trying to work towards. How can you deepen faith in scripture and how can you be firm in spiritual practices despite your everyday challenges?
Yeah, it's a really nice question, and it's a common question which a common challenge that we have. How do you develop faith in scripture uh, even though you get challenges every day, it's said some in the Gita, it's actually said, or we hear that, faith is a starting point, you know. So it's interesting, right? And how can it be a starting point, even though there's so many challenges? Like how can it be, possible? And I guess I'll speak from personal experience, more so than just giving a scriptural answer. When we have challenges and we are simultaneously taking inspiration from, these books, and we're having that, not having blind faith, but actually we're trying to be sincere. When we do that, what happens is you realize the the depth of the wisdom is actually imprinted deep within you, and it's actually going to a deeper space. So when you sit with yourself, when you stay true to the process, when you stay true to the practices you're doing, like the reading or meditation, your chanting, then you'll draw deep inspiration to face them challenges, right? So every time you get a challenge, what will happen is instead of your default being, going to a lower nature, you'll start going more and more connecting to your higher nature. And when you connect with your higher nature, then challenges will become smaller and smaller. It's like when you fly a plane, you look, when you're going up on a plane, and then you look down, and then the more you rise up, the smaller everybody looks, right? Everyone looks tiny. So this is how having that continued faith is just basically you're just going higher and higher on that plane journey. And then your challenges, the everyday challenges become smaller and smaller. And then until to a point where you realize actually everyday challenges or whatever challenges we have are a gift. It's a gift to actually help us elevate more. It's a gift to propel us more because we realize actually you're not supposed to be here. You're not in this material world. You're actually supposed to be, have a higher consciousness. So anyways, just some thoughts around that. Maybe Drishti, you want to add anything to that?
Mine's probably less practical, but at least what I try to do is every time when I sit down to meditate or to read, I just try to build a level of childhood innocence. I give up all problems I have, and I'm just me in the scripture, and there's nothing else in the world apart from me in the scripture. But yeah, not so practical. I think you answered very nicely. We have 3 more questions. Do we have time?
I'm just thinking, I guess if anybody needs to go, they should go. And we don't want to hold anybody up, so we totally understand. And yeah, maybe we can take the last 3 questions, if that's okay. And yeah, if anyone wants to leave, please don't feel obliged to stay. But yeah, if you can, then that's also fine.
Before you leave, one final plug, make sure you sign up for Unlocked. So we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Okay, so Priyanshi asked, can you please explain something about going to mode of goodness and then mode of pure goodness?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the analogy I like to use for this one is being in the mode of goodness is like going to the airport, right? So, and being in the pure mode of pure goodness is actually getting on the plane. So we're actually striving to be in the mode of pure goodness, but actually being in the mode of goodness helps us to get to that point. So, like let's say you want to catch a plane, like you can't catch it from your house, right? What do you have to do? You have to go to the airport, go through security, take out all your change, your phone, your laptop, you go through, and then you're ready to get onto that plane of pure goodness, which also still you have to catch, but there is a distinction between the two. So yes, you can be in the mode of goodness, you can align yourself, but you need that pure goodness. You need that pure, when I say pure goodness, we mean you need the divinity. You need the divinity in your life. So you see in the history, many, many people were in the mode of goodness. They would wake up early, they wake up at 5 a.m., they work really hard. They maybe even be vegetarian. Hitler was vegetarian, surprisingly. But even despite these things, were they good? No, their intention, they didn't have that guidance, they didn't have that divinity. So therefore, being in mode of goodness isn't enough. You need to have that deep consciousness. You need to have that connection with scripture. I hope that answers your question. And maybe if not, then maybe we can dive more deeper into it at some point. But let us know if that helped or not, Priyanshi.
Oh, final question. This is a nice one. It's very personal. Do you have a favorite chapter or verse in the Gita? If so, could you share why it resonates with you?
Thank you. I love personally, I always have loved I go through phases where I have different chapters I really like or different verses I really like. And right now I'm actually reading Prabhupada's there's a book that he wrote, which is the Bhagavad-gita as it is, but he's also spoken many lectures on the Bhagavad Gita. and I'm actually reading them lectures. So you see one of the books behind me, one of the series is like all of his spoken lectures. And he's actually just going through chapter 1. And and what he's talking about right now is that identity, finding out who you are, and this, and he goes so much in depth of the misconceptions that we have right now about you're not this body. And actually he's talking about how material nature, our next body is decided by material nature. It's not that we choose our next body, but it's decided by whatever actions we perform in this life. So we have to be really conscious in what we're doing. So yeah, I would say just right now, like that is my favorite chapter because I'm reading it, and there's so much depth to it. And the verse I would say, from chapter 5, seeing everybody with equal vision, whether it's a man, woman, a dog, or a dog eater. And that's always been one that's inspired me a lot, to try and treat everyone the same and with so much love and sincerity. But the Bhagavad-gita is a gem of a book. There's so many amazing verses in there, it's hard to even pick. Maybe Drishti, you want to share what's yours?
Mine's one that you mentioned in your talk, the one that if you offer a leaf or a fruit, flower, or water to Krishna with love, he'll accept it wholeheartedly. And actually through that, you can own him. It's just such a sweet concept that, it's God. Has all the money in the world, all the fortune, all the beauty, but yet his most kind of overpowering quality is actually that quality of love. And that love means he's also so forgiving to us. He's so kind to us. And it's something I hold on to. Every time I make a mistake, I'm like, divinity is still there. Krishna is still there. And all he wants from me is endeavor and love. He doesn't care about my skill. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. Someone's asking, Ruchi's asking, do we conduct daily Gita sessions to join?
We don't have daily ones. We have morning meditation every day from 6:15 to 7. So I think we have this will happen twice a week, so on a Thursday and a Tuesday. And then after you finish this, we'll have something called circles, which also twice a week. So you do one day, and it's optional. Like one day you do, and one day the bonus session is optional. But yeah, I'm sure one day we'll maybe come to a point where we do daily things with everybody's support and encouragement, and yeah, who knows? But yeah, sometimes you need it daily, actually, isn't it? Once a week, twice a week isn't enough. So yeah, we'll try. And I don't know where you are, Ruchi, but yeah, if you're ever around, maybe we can also meet in person. We have also in-person events, so there's the Manor and Soho, and yeah.
Okay. I think that's the end to all the questions.
Brilliant.
I just wanted to thank everyone again for joining, because it is really that community that makes the scripture even more potent. So having you all here really means a lot. Yeah.
And thank you to Drishti, who's presented so well. And I'm actually really looking forward to doing the sessions with Drishti. I think she's also such an amazing host. So thank you. Also, thanks to all the team behind the scenes for putting in all the effort for this course. And yeah, we humbly request you all sign up today and share with your friends and family, and we can have a real needed discussion and discourse of the Bhagavad Gita together. It's not just, I don't want to just be a facilitator. I want to have a discussion. I want to hear everyone's thoughts and opinions, and ask you what your favorite verse is, or ask you what you enjoyed or learned. And yeah, together we can really grow, even with myself and growing too. So yeah, please join us, and yeah, hopefully we can learn something together.